Thank you, Your Honor. You know, uh, so first off, the Section 2-54 undue influence on subordinates is a brief section of the code that I'm sure you're familiar with, but I just need to make clear that the members of the city council may not interfere with the city manager's authority. However, by giving orders or explicit directions or requests publicly or privately regarding city manners, so it's not just going to the bathroom, it'd be regarding city matters to any subordinate of the city manager. We had a request made to remove this. It happened in the office. There's no reason why these subordinates would lie and make up a story. And I think the panel does have to make a credibility determination here because you've got two folks with no dog in the fight that have said the conversation happened. They admit it was brief, but the conversation happened, and this whole explosion of emails that you have happened as a result of that conversation. That conversation was a request to move this project to future, to basically to the indefinite, to take it off of the proposed budget. Yeah, it's a proposed budget. That's true. It is just a proposed budget. And frankly, the system worked because the city manager was able to step in and stop the interference in his job and get the measure put back in the budget, the proposed budget, where it belonged, so that if it was going to be taken off, it would be done so with proper process. The proper process wasn't followed here. A request was made of a subordinate. Now, if that request was also made of the director, which it's confusing to me, like they made the request outside the office, but then not inside the office, that doesn't really change it. The problem is the ethics code is violated on its face if a request is made of a subordinate. You've got plenty of testimony, you've got plenty of email traffic, you have plenty of evidence to substantiate the fact that a request was made, and in fact, it was acted on. The code doesn't require it to be acted on, but it was acted on, and then it had to be fixed by the city manager. Last comment I'll make is that I heard some talk of parade of horribles about how this will discourage the city council from engaging. No, if you enforce the ethics code, it will encourage the city council to follow the ethics code. And the ethics code is clear. It says you cannot make orders or explicit directions or requests of subordinates regarding city matters. There was a request made of a city matter. Proposed budget is a city matter. And I think the panel should simply substantiate this charge and should recommend appropriate remediation to the city council. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Uh, Frank, I guess you should go next. Anything you need to say?
Your Honor, I have just a couple of points I wanted to make. I know that you've probably all read the amicus brief. I wanted to just highlight a couple of things about it that I think are incorrect. So in the amicus brief, it says in its recitation of facts that the conversation was between Councilmember Graham and two staff members. And I think it's absolutely clear now that the charter officer was always present. And so that part of it is incorrect. And the second thing about the amicus brief is it says that the council member Graham directed action on the budget, which had already been adopted by council. And it's very clear from the testimony that the whole discussion was about the 5-year CIP that was about to be adopted. So it's clearly about was trying to influence an action that was going to come to council. In my view, as stated in my previous report, the presence of the charter officer in the discussion takes it out of being an ethics violation, in my opinion, even if, and of course this is a factually disputed question, but even if the council member said in Ms. Joe's office, take it out, that was in the context of a conversation that included the charter officer. And of course, we don't know whether that actually happened, but certainly the message was take it out of the 5-year CIP that's about to be adopted. That's, to me, a normal way that city council members interact in trying to get their agenda done. I mean, they either convince the staff to adjust the recommendation that comes to council, or they convince their other council members when it comes to council to make an adjustment. And that's just the way it normally happens. So I don't believe, in my opinion, that whether Councilmember Graham actually said take it out in Lena's office or not, I don't think that changes it into an ethics violation. So that would be my position, Your Honor.
Mr. Lasota.
Your Honor. Well, you heard, I think in the summation, an implicit admission of what this complainant has, and that is zero. And I can tell you probably the most telling thing is the appearance suddenly of this word request into the Scottsdale City Code and possibly charter. So let's just read those two provisions so we're all clear on what they say. The council and its members may interact with such employees for the purpose of inquiries. However, neither council, any of its members, nor any member of the appointed public body shall give orders to any such employees, either publicly or privately. That is section 16 of the charter. That's one of the things we're talking about. The other thing we're talking about, Mr. Barton made specific reference to section 2-54. So let's read. Under the city's charter, administrative authority is vested solely in the city manager and other charter officers. Members of the city council may make inquiries to city staff. Members of the city council may not interfere with the authority of the charter officers, however, by giving orders or explicit directions or demands publicly or privately regarding city matters or to any subordinates of the city manager and any charter officers, and they shall not attempt to exert influence on the city manager and other charter officers on issues related to hiring and removal of persons employed by the city. That's not applicable. That is it for the relevant provisions. Actually, I'm going to, that's section 2-54 and of the city code and section 16 of the charter. Now, this sort of pivot, if you might call it, this attempt to insert something in the city code that is not there is a result of how today has gone for the complainant, which has been very poorly. At most, we have a request. I mean, you heard it over and over again. You heard Ms. Johnson. She used request at least 2 times, and then she also said, well, the other thing he said is I don't want it there. Well, that's a preference. That's an expression of what he thinks. You heard no testimony from Ms. Johnson that there was ever an order given. Sonia Andrews and Barry Graham were unequivocal. You have Ms. Zhao's deposition where, if we go over it, her actions, she sent an email pretty contemporaneously with these events in which she, actually, let me quote it, in which she said, let's see, Vice Mayor Graham has requested that we adjust the timeline and move this project to the future. That was dated 2/7/25. Her deposition, we asked if it was a request or an order. I played the part at the beginning where she said, she answers unequivocally, it is a request to my understanding. I actually pressed her on that point. And in her interview with Mr. Cassidy, I think she used the word request about 4 times. Even Mr. Barton gets sort of into the act where he's calling it a request. Throughout this hearing today, it's been a request. Now, obviously, this comes in the context. We have Mr. Graham's testimony. We have Ms. Andrews' testimony. They in terms of those, what they remember, it's not, there are inconsistencies among the witnesses, and these inconsistencies are a complete nothing burger because of what I've just said. Mr. Graham certainly stands by his testimony. I mean, sure, if he wanted to, he might sort of, tweak it a little bit to maybe match up with some of the other testimony. He has been consistent throughout. He says it just didn't happen, but the panel doesn't even need to decide whose precise version of events is true and whose is not, because it doesn't matter. We don't, at worst, we have nothing beyond a request. And sort of the punchline to this story is we're talking about a proposed budget. I mean, we're talking about something that needs council approval. I guess if you've got an item that's going before council, you're a council member, and you assist if you request the assistance of staff other than a charter officer to kind of help you explain what's going on. Now, is that going to now be a charter violation? I mean, we're putting words in the charter that are not there, words in the code that are not there, and yeah, I mean, there is a significant chilling effect. I mean, we're here months later talking about a conversation that I think in the minds of most of the well, at least some of the witnesses was rather not terribly remarkable, not terribly lengthy, and as might be expected, Miss Joe says she doesn't really remember what exactly was said, doesn't really remember who it was said to. And overpinning all of this is the fact that we've got Miss Andrews in the room the entire time, who is a charter officer. If we drill down to what this charter provision, what this city code provision is about, it is to keep the council members from going around the charter officers. That is the obvious intent. Now, that certainly the letter of the code and the charter was not violated, but the spirit of it was clearly not violated either. Mr. Graham goes to Sonia Andrews' office to have this budget meeting, and it's Ms. Andrews who leads him into another office, which is perfectly fine. That should happen. But, you heard what Ms. Andrews says now. Well, in retrospect, I shouldn't have done that. Well, why? Nobody really asked the why question. The why is because of this. And Mr. Graham commented on the nature of this allegation. It's just a political hit. It always was. This amicus, I know Mr. Cassidy spent a few moments on the amicus. It's garbage. It's just political garbage. I don't think the panel should pay any attention to it. It's authored by Mr. Graham's detractors who frankly have lost at the ballot box, and so they're out here trying to hit Barry Graham in some other fashion because they have failed. This is their plan B. Their plan A was to win. That didn't work. This is their plan B. This has gone on for long enough. I mean, the testimony agrees on the point that there was no order given, and the code is clear. It's got to be an order. It's got to be direction, a request, a preference. That is not an order. That does not violate the city code or the city charter. So with that, I just, I think that again, we have to drill down. What does the law say? What does it allow? What does it not allow? Especially, we're talking about things that happened 4 months ago. There's no record of the conversation. We have to have an actual order, an actual direction. And the complainant seems to concede we don't have that because now it changes to a request is good enough to have a charter violation. Well, if that's the case, I mean, it's not what the charter says, but yeah, that's going to have a negative effect on city government. That is going to eviscerate the elected officials. So with that, Your Honors, I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the attention. And I would ask that you find that there is no charter violation or code violation. Thank you.
3675 adopted by the city council. I know we have the seal and the signature of the clerk, and adopted the second day of May 2006. And so perhaps I'm using maybe it's an old version. I can tell you that because I want to make sure it's clear that I wasn't misrepresenting the text of the ordinance to the panel, but the text that I read includes the word request. It says giving orders or explicit direction or requests publicly or privately. Mr. Lusota read it, it said demands. And I think we should clarify Perhaps there was an update that to the order.
Mr. Barton, what are you reading from?
This is the 2006 ordinance as adopted, ordinance 3675.
It's in Scottsdale Revised Code section 2-54. And I downloaded from the code itself into my report.
Right.
And in my report, it does say giving orders or explicit directions or demands is what I think the current version is. I couldn't tell you when it was amended or if it was amended, but that's what I downloaded when I did my report.
That's what I have.
Okay.
That's what I have.
Well, apologies then if this was an outdated request versus demands. There's obviously some nuance there.
It looks like,
Can I
let me
say
just,
something, Your Honor. I wouldn't. Yeah, of all lawyers, I wouldn't accuse Mr. Barton
No.
of misrepresenting.
He's a straight shooter of the first
Yeah.
order. I have no problem with that. Don't worry about that. Tim, were you saying something that you wanted?
no,
to
it looks to me, it looks to me like, and again, I'm surmising this may have been amended again after that 2006 date, but I can't tell for sure. But what Mr. Cassidy was telling us is what I've been reading off of.
Okay. Mr. Barton, anything else?
Nothing else, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. Well, then I guess we're supposed to deliberate. Is
Judge
that the next
Fleischman,
step?
could I make a request, Judge Fleischman? Could
Yes.
we take 5 or 10 minutes? I'd like to get my notes together
Absolutely.
and my thoughts together just for a few minutes.
Yeah, let's see. It's 9:55. Let's meet at 10 o'clock. Is that okay,